And we are live. Welcome, everyone who is watching or listening. This is the SEO and AI news for week 17. That was last week. We've compiled it all. We're going to go through it. We've got Linus, my co host, Frederick here. We both work at Precis Digital. And sorry in advance because I had my birthday this weekend and I celebrated hard, and my voice from the karaoke singing is quite gravelly and a little bit off. So, just bear with me as we go through these awesome news. First, Shopify checkout might be integrated directly into ChatGPT very soon. Some code snippet or something that somebody found on LinkedIn and shared. That's pretty interesting. First of all, these e-commerce platforms, they can get an advantage firsthand by actually being able to work with ChatGPT. So I think that's really cool. And also, Google should be scared. They are focused on products, and I think this is what AI will tackle next: is the whole product shopping environment. And if they can do that well, Google is is gonna get hurt. So
Yep.
just very interesting thing. We'll keep an eye out, of course. This was just, I guess this is. I wanted to share this because I use AI to program app script, some Python, but I really still have an idea of how to program and the logic behind it. And without that, I don't. It's a helpful tool, right? But it doesn't get everything done. And I think this is a great article on why we shouldn't rely AI for coding, but also the illusion of AI efficiency. I thought there was a cool chart in that article where it's like it's actually the same efficiency, just looks like it isn't. And I
Yeah.
kind of agree. Um, uh, so from a personal standpoint, especially with AppScript or things like APIs, it's a really good tool for because it understands documentation well, so it can quickly say, "Oh no, you're missing this." Oh, which you might have spent 2 hours researching and testing. So those kind of small things really work for me with AI when it comes to coding. Also, I'll write a function and it goes, "You could just do that in 2 lines with a loop." Oh, thanks. So it's really good at that, but like you can't just ask it to do one thing. You actually need some kind of logic there. So just a really good article there as well.
Yep. Agreed.
Href, I like this one as well. So an article kind of focused on LLMs and why they're not really rewarding originality, which I think Google kind of wants to do, especially if you have a guide that has more original content, like firsthand experience, like maybe some analysis. I think Google would like to reward that. That is better. That's how content keeps getting better and better. And I think this is kind of doing the opposite here. So that was a really interesting article. And basically, it's LLMs, they like consensus.
Yeah.
What does that mean for a strategy involving getting AI visibility? Kind of goes against what we perhaps a brand manager would tell everyone else to do. So I kind of don't have a conclusion for this, except if you're doing informational content, what is it that you actually really want to achieve? And is AI visibility that important when looking at the numbers, which we might be getting into later? Those are kind of the questions
I,
we need to ask.
I think nothing changes here. I think if you want to build your brand, you want to get it to be known and be top of mind. And you probably get that to happen by people mentioning it a lot in different kind of ways, which is pretty much what they're saying here, is that what gets shown is what gets mentioned a lot. So I think nothing will really change here necessarily. I just think like if you're very small, then it's very difficult to compete with someone who's very big.
Yeah.
But that's also the reality in, I don't know, society in the world at large.
Yeah, the snowball effect, or I can't remember the name. Yeah, kind of a thing going on there. I do like the takeaway here. I think is if you have new terms or new things you want out there, um, one of the strategies is really getting it out to other platforms. So not just don't publish it on your blog, but also share it. Make sure you put it everywhere else. Like again, solid branding slash sharing of your content if it's
Mm.
good enough, right? So just a good takeaway there as well. Jeff Dean had an interesting tweet. This is old school stuff going back in time. Somebody reminded him of his lecture in 2009, where he describes the evolution of Google search from 99 to 2009, which is kind of a dark period. I started right around 2009 to 12 ish with the SEO and kind of websites. So that period is dark for me. And he said something about disk-based serving system, memory indices, express. I just find it interesting. I thought this might more of a nerdy thing for SEOs out there. I don't think there'll be takeaways from this. I still have to look into that video, but I just wanted to share it. We've got Search Pilot. This has become a staple here. Every time they share one of their tests, they're really good at that. That's, by the way, a great content strategy is doing these small analysis for clients, maybe for free, but then you get this content out and it's really worth sharing. I think that's a great strategy. But does adding airport code to titles on H1 improve rankings? And we're talking, this is very travel niche, of course. And it had a negative impact. Literally, it was very, did not like that at all for some reason. So don't do that if you're in the travel niche. Next up, again, I think there's so much of this coming. Every week there'll be a guide on answer engine optimization or geo or all these things. And I think this one just kind of focuses on the differences of why SEO is not AEO, as we now call it. Implementation differs, ranking signal differs. There's so much to take away from this. So I just think it's a really good article that I think it's I put it as a must read, so watch out. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
I just think it's super interesting, and I think it goes very well with the Ahrefs piece on the flattening of content as well. Where, yeah, I think it's super interesting and very much a must read. And like thinking about, I thought it was very interesting how where we should do AEO is where there is no SEO overlap. And like being able to think about that and identify all those gaps. So I think it's super nice.
Yeah, one as well here. I like the one where they mentioned fragmented markets with more competition. They have higher opportunities for new brands to gain visibility. I like the whole thing of SEO short query optimization versus long. We can almost go long tail, I think, at this point when you have 3 phrases. But the problem is we can either look for long tail in Google search and probably extrapolate, but we don't really have like the same data from ChatGPT. What do people search for, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe that'll come soon. I think might be some tools already starting to look into like clickstream data. So that's kind of where we're at with that stage, like actually optimizing for specific ones. But if you know your brand and your audience well, I think you can actually get there by yourself. So I'd be very interested to see how that kind of evolves. By the way, all these articles on ChatGPT, visibility in AI, this is the hot new topic. A lot of them overlap. Meaning, if I take 10 latest articles, there's a Venn diagram somewhere, and a lot of it is the same information. So just so you're clear, and I think it's also not an exact science. So I would look for cases and analysis, and just because this guy has written for Search Engine Journal for 3 years doesn't mean it's 100% foolproof. So let's just take it with a grain of salt. I'm going to be sassy on this one. AI Overviews has reached 1.5 billion users. Google is so proud to share this number, and I immediately retweeted that. I don't see that as a win because you already have a really big user base, and now you just shoved a new product down their throats with no access to removing it. That is not a win. What you're sharing is just, hey, we forced something, and people accepted it. Yeah, because you're the biggest search player in the world. That's not a win. So I did a little. Also, I wanted to know. Well, okay, so 1.5 billion monthly users. Well, how much is the overall, like total monthly users? And if 85.2 billion, that's a pretty clear. Okay, so now we know that that's actually a pretty clear number. So there's still a lot of non-AI overview search, and that could be because there's countries that it hasn't been implemented in. I think we're at this stage now where we've got US, we've got bunch of other countries. I think we might have targeting more countries or more people directly than not at this stage. If we exclude like markets where Google perhaps operates at a low key, like China and stuff like that, I think we're reaching it's still small. It seems small to me. So this one is for you. You love this one. Again, Brody SEO on Twitter. best follow you can do right now. He's awesome. He shares a lot of good stuff. But he's talking about e-commerce SEO a lot and Merchant Center and opportunities there. So just a top-notch guy to follow. The Top's quality score badging is a ranking opportunity. Yes. And this one is specifically about how you use high-resolution images to get kind of better scoring, etc. So again, there's this whole thing where you've got Merchant Center, you've got your e-commerce website with structured data, and you also have Google Shopping environment, and like ratings go there. You have ratings on your website. There's a bunch of these things that connect, and one of these things is image search. And there's a really cool way of, for example, automating the process of looking up images with Google Vision API, and then finding higher resolution ones automatically. Like just a really cool niche thing you can do if you're really out of opportunities. So happy to share. Thank you, Brody.
You're a legend, Brody.
Yeah, legend. This one caught me off guard. This article here. So basically, it talks about, I think a person from Google actually talks about how to remove a site, or not a site, but like part of a site or images without Search Console verification. And there's something called the refresh outdated content tool, and that sounded like you could be very much prone to spam, like just remove competitors' content. I just, it caught me off guard.
I don't think so. I
Well,
don't know. I feel like Jon Mueller wouldn't suggest this if it wasn't actually like they had some fail safes for it.
yeah, me neither. That's what I thought again. But I also remember, I think it's worth discussing here a little bit, is that you can always go in Google and just flag things that are wrong if you think so. And you could technically do that at scale for a competitor you obviously don't like, their competitor. But Google must have a way to kind of look through that.
Yep.
I don't know how they do that. But I remember there was one I saw way back at an SEO conference in Denmark. This one cheeky guy had his whole 1 hour presentation on how to demote competitors directly using tools. But he was, what he was doing is saying, look, this is Google guidelines for search for everything, ads. Check your competitors if they're following them, because if they're not, you can actually flag them. And he was like, for example, in local SEO, if you're actually using the name of the city in your brand, like Aarhus Barber, right? But if your name isn't Aarhus Barber, that's technically against the guidelines, and you can flag it. And he did that for plenty of competitors, and they got removed. And then his client was at the top because they were following them. So that's a kind of a way to do it, where know the rules, play the game, kind of a lawyer situation going on there.
Yep.
So that's really cool. So there's probably articles on that if you're into local SEO or have a local business. I have to find the slide deck. That was a great slide deck. I have to find it. Next up, this is a great analysis. I think we've all asked this question, and now we kind of have an answer. I know it's not a very large-scale analysis, but it's better than nothing. 76% of title tags are changed by Google. Shocker. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
So you might be wondering, why should I write title tags? Well, it's still a ranking factor. Google still uses it, but then it rewrites. And I think what's happening here is Google will change a lot of title tags, but it depends on the query. So if I really search for something extremely specific that matches the title that I wrote, I think it won't. Google will just keep that title because it's so well matching, but it might change it. But depending on the query, that's one factor. And then there's a huge other one, which is people still put in brand at the end. It's been kind of a thing we've been doing for years. You know, buy T-shirts online, best price, and then brand name at the end. And that's a kind of a branding strategy, visibility, show people your brand. Google removes that automatically now. And I guess that counts as a rewrite. That might account for a huge percentage here. So as well, I think those are factors to consider. For anyone, reminder, if you have a website or a client and they keep putting brand at the end still, and you can see that Google removes it, that's an opportunity to add more call to actions. Because now you have a space you can use for something Google won't change, like a keyword, an extra CTA. Use it. That's a great opportunity. You could do it at scale for large websites or smaller scale for smaller ones. So today's tip. Next up, Aleda as well, another legend, Aleda Solis. and I and I guess just another tweet that I kind of like to share where she goes through. There's so much hype around AI right now, and I think a lot of people might. It's. I think it's a dangerous to overinvest. Now we do sell AI visibility, a answer engine optimization as a service, and we're knee deep in this. We know what we're doing. The problem is that is tied into an SEO strategy. It's basically SEO, and then you add a little bit on top for the AI. That's how I see it. That's how we should sell it. If anyone else sells it in another way, watch out, because they are so linked, they're overlapping completely. And if we overinvest in AI, it's search is still the biggest traffic source we can get right now. And we can see, if we relate to the numbers we had for AI overviews in terms of billion users, that's still a small little percentage. And it probably targets a lot of informational queries. It's very expensive for Google. They don't have ads. People might ignore ads there, so I don't think it's sustainable as well. So I'm not really expecting that much growth in that area, and I guess time will tell. But for now, it's still pretty good idea to just focus on white hat, solid SEO, and just make sure you're discoverable at least on a technical level when it comes to AI, and that's it. Let's just usually that gets you most of the way. Data Chaz shared the best 5 or 6 recent guides on agentic AI, how to create and build agents with AI. A lot of them comes from the actual AI agent providers, so ChatGPT, etc., or OpenAI, it's called. So yeah, just a good list to have. Bookmark that one if you're interested in this. And then finally, I actually didn't know this plugin, Chrome plugin, Search Console Visualizer, it's called, but they have a new feature where you can actually get to visualize crawl stats, which I think is very overlooked report. Well, not if you're in the game, but I'm showing for people who have the video, you can see reminder, if you go into settings, you can then go into crawl stats and see a bunch of different things like how many requests, what kind of type of file. Those are great reports, and they're hidden under settings for some reason. I just find that weird placement. But it's a cool thing, and this plugin, which usually also can visualize other reports, can now visualize data from this one as well. So I think it's pretty cool. However, I'm also always suspicious with these. I read the terms because you're now, in our situation, we have access to a bunch of different client search consoles, and can this thing read it and then save it? That's my question. So read the terms before you use these. If it's on your own site, I don't think they'll sell your exact site plus the data, but they might aggregate it and sell it as analysis. I am not sure. Read the terms and conditions, but still a cool little thing. And in any case, you still got the cross-stat report to look at without. And that was it for today's news. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, follow, or don't. It's up to you. And sorry for the broken voice. Thank you, Linus, for joining, as always.
Thank you.
And I will see you guys and girls next week. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.